Matt, in the first segment, we talked about sort of the new proposed rule encouraging managed care, allowing more managed care for these various Medicaid programs and special populations. We just talked about the consolidation in the industry. For Medicaid, what does that consolidation, if anything, mean as you see how it plays out on the health plan side across the country?
Well, I mean, as I think we've said earlier, there's going to be some concern because you don't want there to be this monolith. You don't want monolithic entities out there. And we go back to the Massachusetts Attorney General's report from a number of years ago that laid out pretty clearly that when you look across the spectrum, the only thing that correlates to price is market share. So you got to, when entities, whether they're insurance companies or hospitals or federally qualified health clinics or what have you, when any one of them gets too much power, then they dictate the price, and you got to avoid that as much as you can. But I think there are different dynamics playing out in Medicaid, and there are a lot of sure there are the big five becoming the big three, but there are lots of smaller, state-specific, regional-specific, specialty managed care plans that exist and thrive in the Medicaid world. And it's a lot of those that have really taken the lead in trying to figure out how to really improve and manage the care, as opposed to just managing the cost, for the special needs populations, for long-term care, for behavioral health. And sometimes the consolidation will be one of those smaller plans gets bought up by a bigger plan, and hopefully what you want to see there is the bigger plan sort of saying, we want to be in this Medicaid space. We don't really know how to do it, but they do. Let's bring them in. Let's figure out how to take what they know and spread that. You hope that happens. You hope that happens.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about another cost driver that we heard a lot about over the summer. The increasing number of high-cost specialty medications has brought a sense of urgency to the need for cost containment strategies that both ensure access on the one hand, but reduce overutilization. This is a big issue. We've seen this last year with Sovaldi and the Hep C drugs. We're seeing it now in the discussion of the cholesterol injectables. I guess sort of the first question, and maybe Austin will throw this your way, drug pricing. Does it make any sense? And if not, how should we think about pricing drugs?
So you can explain drug pricing in that we have a market, and we confer a market exclusivity to drug manufacturers, with a new molecule, and they have a patent and they get market exclusivity, and they can charge right now more or less whatever they want, and then large payers like Medicaid and maybe large health insurers in the VA and so forth can negotiate discounts, and that's just how it plays out. But those prices are going up and up and up, particularly in cancer care. And Peter Bach put out a really interesting idea in that realm, where really what he was looking at, I don't know that he said it this way, but the way I read it was, look, instead of thinking about we're paying for a drug, let's think about we're paying for what that drug does. And if a specific cancer drug can do different things for different cancers, and the return you get in terms of life years is different. And he said, well, why should we pay more for one condition than we do for another, or pay the same? Why should we pay the same price when we get the different value? And he was trying to basically equate those and kind of do more of a value-based pricing scheme. And that makes a lot of sense when you just kind of change your perspective of what are you getting for the price.
So we do that in Europe, right?
Europe has, many countries in Europe have reference pricing arrangements where they group drugs into therapeutic classes that have similar effect, and then they peg a price based on, I don't know if they always pick the lowest, but some price, and all drugs in that class, get that price. And it's a reference pricing scheme that's different from other kinds of reference pricing that we've seen here. For example, CalPERS does a different kind of reference pricing, and we haven't seen that here, but it's certainly something.
So there are
to consider.
different problems here, though. One is that some drugs are less effective than others, or less effective in certain situations. Sometimes the drugs are very effective, like Sovaldi, and there the problem is that they priced it, benchmarked against the liver transplant, right? And we can't afford this. I mean, I think we can have a ball as health policy people dreaming up different ways of making this work better or making it fairer. But at the end of the day, we're in this breakthrough stage right now where we can't afford it. I mean, there's an article in the New York Times today about, I'm going to call it out, Turing Pharmaceuticals, which just acquired a company that was selling a pill for $13.50 a pill. It's an antiparasitic, I think.
It's a generic drug.
Yeah,
Great
and they now
JDAs.
jacked up the price to $750 a pill. All perfectly legal, it's fine, right? Except if you're paying for it.
Yeah.
So we just can't, we can't do this. And
So what's the solution? I mean, some of the PBMs this summer seem to be pushing back a
reference
little
pricing,
bit, right?
I think, is one good way to think about it.
I mean,
I think, you know, the Center for American Progress just put out a report that I saw on the train last night with different solutions, letting Medicare negotiate. Why not? Everybody else does.
It's still possible, though, to have a drug that's reasonably priced from a cost-effective point of view, but is so applicable, so widely applicable that the total budget impact is huge.
Right.
And that's when you get into an issue. You know, trying to push that price lower and lower just to address the larger budget impact, you have to think carefully about that because you do want to encourage highly cost-effective
Although
therapy.
the one thing that I want to make sure I say is it is ethically wrong for providers to get paid more for using more expensive drugs, as the ASP system works with a lot of the injectables. And we need to stop that. And if people need to be paid for their overhead, let's have an honest way of paying for overhead. Joe Newhouse did a study some years ago comparing, there was a highly effective treatment for lung cancer that was cheaper, and then a more expensive, less effective drug was introduced, and there was a crossing in the use curve. And it was, I mean, it was just completely, it was economically motivated behavior that was not in the patient's interest, and it's not in anybody's interest.
That's
So
clearly not
that
paying for the more
thing needs to
cost-effective
be,
drug.
that needs to be removed from our payment model.
Well, in some cases.